Welcome back. You're watching KTN Prime. We're glad you're watching.
Indeed, now leaders both in the national and county governments are trooping down to the coast for what has been billed as the biggest devolution conference yet. And we now want to speak to Ferdinand Omondi, who's our senior reporter at the Coast region, to just tell us more about this. Ferdinand, thank you for joining us this evening. It's yet another conference, yet another meeting on devolution. What do we expect from this one this time?
Good evening, Yvonne. 2 weeks ago, the members of the County Assembly through the Speakers Forum came here to discuss devolution. And in the first instance, it was actually a victory for their welfare. The President supported their call to get car grants the same way as the members of Parliament. So they are hoping that the SRC will sign off to a 2 million shilling takeaway for each of the members. But this time around, over 2,000 of them trooping down to the south coast here at the Leisure Lodge once more to discuss devolution. The theme being devolution 1 year on, looking at 1 year into devolution, celebrating milestones and confronting the challenges. So we expect this time around for them to look into the nitty-gritties, a report card, if you will, for them. And indeed, they'll also be discussing experiences not just from within Kenya, but also from beyond those who have already been serving devolution. One of the keynote speakers expected really to give them an insight into what devolution is all about is none other than the governor of Lagos State, Nigeria, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, expected to be one of the speakers earlier. And indeed, Nigeria is one of those states where Kenya can really learn from. It is a federal republic, 36 states, close to 200 million people as the citizens. That is more, about 4 times the population of Kenya. And so this one can also divide it almost straight down the middle on religious grounds, Christians versus Muslims, in which also plays a key role in how even the presidential elections are conducted. So Mr. Babatunde Fashola is expected really to give an insight through which they can be able to look into themselves and see exactly where devolution has succeeded. A lot has been said, Yvonne, about where devolution has taken Kenya so far ever since the advent of the new constitution. A lot of Kenyans think that gains have been made, but there's been a lot of criticism for the manner in which the governors and the MCAs have performed, particularly with the funds they have received, but also the state itself and members of parliament also being accused of being negative effects on devolution, actually as great as being accused of trying to kill devolution, and they have defended themselves. So is it going to be as fiery as it was 2 weeks ago? Maybe, but this time around we expect that perhaps there might be less confrontation and a bit more of honesty into exactly where Kenya has been 1 year down. Yvonne.
Right, Ferdy, thank you for that. But just before we let you go, a lot of talk that's happening around devolution, a lot of discussions around it. And like you said, what happened 2 weeks ago, fiery, and people talking about their salaries. But what, for example, are the residents of Mombasa feeling about, you know, this issue of devolution and now the talks happening in their county? Do you get a sort of sense of fatigue around the conferences that are being had surrounding devolution?
Well, you know, for the local Mwananchi, really, a conference does not mean anything to them, to be honest. They want people to come out of these conferences and give deliverables, and Kenya does not have a very good reputation of making good what comes out of reports and conferences, and there's a lot of hope, really, that perhaps this is something that will bear fruit. Nonetheless, the bureaucrats themselves, the proponents of devolution and those who also claim to support devolution think that this is one way to assess themselves, learn from each other. We have 47 counties, Yvonne. Some have been praised for the manner in which they have spent their money. Some have been heavily criticized. We have had a speaker, a governor impeached for non-performance and things like that. So for the local Mwananchi, we expect that other than the impeachment and other than the back and forth between government, the feeling that power has come to them is there to be appreciated to the fullest. There are those who feel that perhaps now that the governor is there, they can go there and perhaps get the services they needed. But a lot of those aspects that have been devolved, like the medical sector, a bit of a crisis, and the explanation has been that the country is still in transition. The local Mwananchi is asking, how long do we need to have this transition before we can fully feel the effects of devolution, Yvonne? So there'll be a lot lot of people will say that devolution has succeeded, and others will say not quite yet. But let's see what really happens at the end of these 5 days, because it runs from tomorrow 1st up to the April 5th, that is Saturday. Yvonne.
Indeed. Thank you very much for that, Ferdinand Omondi, and we thank you also for the live footage of just those preparations that are taking place for this conference on devolution. Ferdinand Omondi will keep us posted on that.